straight into it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation, and that's because I want you all to focus on me rather than the screen. So please adjust your focus. Let me begin. And may I ask you to allow me to say thank you to Dr. Melam and his hard-working staff at the Chamber for organizing this workshop for our community affairs, departments, and media. I extend our appreciation for inviting Ramu NiCo to this occasion as well, to the President of the Chamber and the executives of his committee. If time indeed allowed, I would want to make mention of many of you who are present. Unfortunately, I only have 20 minutes to wrap up this session. So I will skip that part and say thank you all for attending this afternoon session. Usually, you don't get so many crowds in the afternoon, but I'm so grateful you have stayed on to this point. The topic that was assigned for Ramu NiCo to speak on was, quote, was preparing impacted communities for mine closure. However, this is not what I will speak on. Ramu NiCo, obviously, for many will know, is in court with another party. And the other party wants Ramu NiCo to close down. This topic is therefore sub judice, and I would not speak on it. Instead, I consulted with Dr. Melam, and we agreed that I should speak, but speak on a different topic. We decided at the end that I should speak on the topic, managing the future of the PNG mining sector. This topic, I suppose, would be close to the hearts of many who are not sure about the future of the PNG mining sector. The mining sector is the engine room of growth for the Papua New Guinea national economy. Therefore, the GDP of the economy in future, or the growth of the economy in future, will rely on the mining sector. So I want to speak in the next few minutes, plainly, speak about basics and simple language. Much of what will I say, we already know. We speak about it and we talk about it in the corridors or whilst passing. But what we need to do is bring that discussion into public forums again and again until we are noticed. In the interest of everyone, the future of the mining sector should be robust, should be driven by growth, should be stable, and driven by a robust, strong private sector. We may hold differing thoughts and judgments on the current and the future conditions of the mining sector. Generally, the industry in the past has been internationally competitive. However, the mining sector is currently riding on turbulence and uncertainty with the recent changes to the mining laws and the proposed new changes to other enabling laws which will come. Notably, the sector must stay internationally competitive to attract foreign direct investments. Without the benefit of insight, our focus of the future, after recent amendments and new proposed amendments to the legal and regulatory frameworks, would remain inconclusive. The mineral industry is global, highly competitive, capital intensive, technically complex, and high risk. In Papua New Guinea, the tenement-owned foreign financial investors, mine operators, the government, the landowners, and the people's perceptions are not strongly aligned. Often, this leads to mistrust. The challenge of all these industry actors is to maintain a constant open dialogue, accessibility, transparency, and clarity in their communications. The perceived problem is also a big problem for the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum that it faces constantly. Managing public and workplace perception should be the central and critical task of the industry. The industry assumes that all the players, especially landowners and policymakers, understand financial, technology, and market changes in the global environment. The industry needs to translate that into layman's understandings. Consequently, we cannot engage too many people with intellectual discussions on the underlying changes and trends that constantly affect our domestic economy and internal environment. The industry approach is part of the problem. And if we continue the same approach, we should not expect a different answer. However, the community affairs and media workshop, such as this, will bridge that gap and achieve the results we anticipate. In developing a new mine, the government contributes the following resources. Landowners, at the beginning as an asset, at the end may be a problem, but if they follow the footsteps of Larry, they will continue to be an asset to the industry, to the company, and to the government. The government brings or contributes to the industry legal and regulatory frameworks, stability agreements, tax concessions, land, mineral resources, and mine leases and licenses. The tenant holder contributes the following resources: capital, both equipment and finance, technology, technical know-how expertise, insurance, and marketplace. Blending these mixes will either make or break a project. The parties in the agreement coexist. They inevitably need each other, and they operate in a symbiotic setting. Acknowledging, understanding, honoring stability agreements, keeping international best practices, upholding obligations and implementing the mine development contract to the letter of the law will increase investors' confidence in the mining sector in Papua New Guinea. The development of the mining industry will depend on how internationally competitive the mining sector is and shaped by global commodity markets, domestic investment climate, the external environment, legal and regulatory frameworks, and the fiscal and monetary policies of the government. Knowing that the mining industry is global, it is increasingly influenced by a limited number of well-financed, technologically advanced, and transnational companies, bringing many challenges to all nations. These companies are highly selective, risk-averse, and sensitive to changes in the investment climate. A United Nations World Needs Survey found 6 factors that these countries use to determine whether to invest or not to invest. They are geological prospectivity and mining tradition, clear mining rights and title, attractive and competitive fiscal conditions, ownership and control of operations, political stability and transparency of government, and finally, availability and accessibility of infrastructures. On the other end, the government is traditionally a regulator, but is fast shifting to a position of major shareholder, owner, and mine operator. The new position achieved by the government was through the change of law. Unfortunately, these changes in law or changes in the regulatory and procedural laws did not accompany the change in the mining law. Thus, the industry and investors remain uncertain and unclear on how the new laws will function. Bringing clarity sooner will stop the anxiety of doing the rounds in the mining sector. Whatever happens or will happen, the mining sector will impact on all other sectors of the national economy. The mining sector brings foreign exchanges. It grows the GDP or the economy, and is the cash cow and the building block of the nation and the government. Therefore, the government and landowners must ensure that laws and enabling regulations, stability agreements, mine development contracts, and their own demand are fair and promote private sector participation and attract foreign direct investment into the sector. The PNG mining sector dominated the last 4 decades of growth in the Papua New Guinea economy. The sector in the past roughly accounted for about 27% of the GDP growth, contributed about or around 27,000 employed jobs, generated about 86% of the export revenue, contributed about 10.1% of the government revenue, created more micro, small, medium enterprises, and more self-employment in the formal and non-formal sectors of the economy. Previously, the agri-plantation sector dominated the national economy. However, the plantation sector died due to increasing costs, bad public infrastructures such as road, transport, power, and telecommunication. Other factors included land disputes, increasing law and order problems, government decentralization of key functions from the central authorities to the periphery authorities, and a past decision of government policy that returned plantations to landowners. Many of these traits, you can find them existing in the mining sector as well. And these are constraints that limit the development of the mining sector. The main crops, coffee and cocoa, plantation crops, relied on international organizations like the International Cocoa Organization and the International Coffee Organization to allocate export quotas for each country and provided stability agreements resulting in higher commodity prices. However, the failure of these international organizations to sign new stability agreements and allocate quotas led to saturated markets worldwide. Presently, the prices of agricultural commodities are driven by supply, by demand, and by market volatility. Fast forward, the mining sector will underpin the economic growth for Papua New Guinea in the medium to long term. If you collapse the mining sector, you will arm the sovereignty of Papua New Guinea. It is as simple as that. I find many writers and commentators jot that the future of the PNG economy lies in LNG. I have a strong opposed view. The presumption, or that presumption, in my view, is dangerous for the government to formulate budgets and develop plans. Let me offer a few remarks. 1. LNG is not a commodity in the raw form. 2. LNG is not a commodity traded on stock markets. 3. LNG stored underground does not have value until you have a confirmed contract for A, a consumer market, B, a confirmed price, and C, production ready to supply. The planning and financing of an LNG project is different from developing, planning, and financing a mining project. Thus, fiscal stabilities and taxation regimes and systems, policies, and legal frameworks required for the two sectors are different. Therefore, assuming that what works in the LNG sector will also work in the mining sector will be counterproductive. Landowners, the national government, local representatives, and the local governments demand community and regional development and increased equity, including equitable tax distributions from revenues, reduction in carbon footprint, and social licensing. In addition, the local and regional communities affected by mine activities must see that they benefit directly from the mine operations. At Ramu NiCo, we have tried to bridge this gap by paying royalties directly to all the local level government in the province. Apart from paying ordinary taxes paid by mining companies like personal income tax, which is at 38%, and withholding tax, corporate tax, duties on imports, and VAT, directly and indirectly, the mining sector pays dividends, royalties, development levies, production levies, and many more tax benefits. In many other social and economic activity sectors, companies do not pay this additional tax. Thus, the government is increasingly dependent on the mining sector for fiscal revenue. Moreover, an expansion in the mining sector means increased government revenue for public investments in health, in education, free education, police, courts, roads, bridges, DSIPs, PSIPs, and repaying public debt. This list can go on and on, all funded through the mining sector and the petroleum sector. The mining sector directly impacts on the productivity growth of government services because the government is reliant on money from the sector, on imports of goods as well and imports of services, access to foreign currencies, acquisitions of foreign expertise and technology, and the multiplier effects of spending income on the economy by 27,000 people who earn fortnightly wages. While minerals contribute significantly to growth, government policies and institutional capacities will define if wealth derived from the mineral exploitation is lost or invested for better. The objective should be to avoid policies that lead to fiscal unsustainability, unproductive investments, rent-seeking behavior, and Dutch effects. The worst response would be to create more state-owned enterprises that are more likely to fail at all and are not transparent and leaving behind a legacy of financial debts and losses leading to the negative growth and slower economic recovery of the national economy. Mining revenues are not reaching mine communities, implying that communities near the mine have not benefited from these revenues. The state collects these revenues through taxes. SOE collects these revenues through dividends. And the landowner proxy companies collect royalties. Local allocation and management of fiscal revenues from the mining activities should be a key component for fostering local economic development, peace, income, and poverty reduction. Larry just showed us that that's what exactly is required. And that's where local landowner royalties, monies, must be spent. PNG needs internationally competitive tax laws to compete for foreign investments by embracing best practices in the mining sector. There are different types of taxes applied to mining companies. The government has also provided mining companies with tax breaks, reliefs, and concessions. In assessing best practices in tax systems, legal and regulatory frameworks, and policies, the government and the industry must undertake quantitative and qualitative case studies of other mining sectors in other countries. We should have international comparisons and examples of best practices for how other countries have addressed the issues, the problems, and the constraints that we face in the sector today. When a government is formulating a policy or policies, the government must be careful not to stray too far away from the international norms concerning government revenue shares and the internal rate of return on investments. To assess the impact of PNG tax regime and the legal framework, we can quickly compare with other countries, showing the internal rate of return on investment and the share of taxes collected by the government as a percentage of cash flow. Keeping PNG internationally competitive requires finding a delicate balance between various tax components and a shareholder dividends. Every time you change one of these components, you will also have to change another of those components. There is always a trade-off. When you change one, you will trade off for another. A decline in the IRR and increase in share tax of government will push investors away. PNG mining sector is competitive at the moment compared to Canada and compared to Mongolia. It is higher, more attractive than Indonesia, but less attractive than Chile. Rate of return is a good indicator to dictate our policies and our laws governing the sector. A mining project, proximity to a road, power, water infrastructure will significantly impact on the capital cost of development. PNG sector is the spine of the economy. As mining production increases, so does the government revenue will increase and public expenditure will increase. Acquisition of land is a prerequisite to mining growth. However, for landowners making a living from subsistence agriculture and monetary compensation for their land is not a sustainable solution. The most advanced compensation agreements used globally for landowners combine mine employment, spin-off businesses, training and capacity building, and providing access to business finance. Such an approach will effectively compensate landowners by helping landowners to acquire life skills and capabilities to use financial resources and human capital as an alternative asset to their land. Mining companies have responded to the need to support social and communal programs in mining sectors by establishing foundations and leveraging the capability of these communities to access funds from private and government sectors. What these communities need is the state-owned enterprises and companies who are proxies should go down to invest in training, invest in improving landowner capabilities, and provide capital finance for landowners. It is not the responsibility of mining companies alone. Let me conclude. Inevitably, foreign investments will be the primary, foreign investors and private sectors will be the primary drivers of exploration and mining development in Papua New Guinea. I cannot see the government and landowners investing in upstream, investing in explorations in the future as yet from where I am standing. Exploration is a high-risk business, and I can see the PNG government and landowners unwilling to operate upstream. The mining industry is global, so the legal frameworks, stability agreements, and the operating environment must be robust, straight, and straightforward. Finally, I also urge the industry to formulate a wide policy paper that would articulate industry thoughts from the perspective of mining companies operating in the mining sector. On several occasions, I heard the minister issue this challenge, the mining minister issuing this challenge. And I concur with the minister to a lack of an industry-wide policy paper. The industry-wide policy paper can only guide the minister, the ministry, the department, and government on the thoughts of the industry on how it should move forward and grow the industry. At the end, very important, if we force the internal rate of return on investments downward, the sector will collapse. At the moment, the internal rate of return for an investor to be happy and is attracted to Papua New Guinea to invest sits at 16.2%. Any movement of that internal rate of return downward will signal that Papua New Guinea is no longer a destination for investments in the mining sector. Thank you. I hope that we are very clear where we are standing in and from this room about where the sector is, what the government is doing and saying, and at what point we must meet and cannot negotiate. Thank you. I hope We all can work with the government in unity and unison. We are not competitors to the government or landowners. We are partners in an industry that is global. And our competitors are outside of Papua New Guinea. They are owners and operators in the mining sector of a different country, and they don't live and work with us. That, and they are our competitors. We are all partners. So hope together we can resolve many of the outstanding issues that we have in the industry with the government. Thank you.